to. So I've had a very good June so far. I got to go on vacation to the beach and escape the heat, and then I've been reading a lot of books and a lot of physical books as well. I've been picking up tons of books as you've seen through all my book hauls, and so I've really put my focus on reading some of them. So it's been great fun to actually have like a pile of books to show you. But before I get into those, I'm going to talk about my ebooks. So there's not as many of those. The first one is Reunion Beach, stories inspired by Dorothea Benton Frank. These stories include the authors of Ellen Hildebrand, Adriana Trigiani, Patty Callahan, Mary Alice Monroe, and there's a bunch others, but these are the more known names. I've read something by each of these authors except Patty Callahan, and Dorothea Benton Frank is one of those authors I picked up like years and years ago. That is like a Southern writer who writes a lot of beach stories, and so she's like one of the earlier writers that I used to follow, and I still read her books. Like last year, I read her Queen Bee, but she died, and so the story that she had never written was about a reunion of friends, and there's like some kind of bird theme in place, and so each of these authors have some story to tell that's inspired by her, either to do with birds and reunion or just a reunion, and so and they all focus around beach stories, and so yeah, it was a really nice read, and to find some new authors like Patty Callahan. But all the others I've read, except for Adriana Trigiani, Ellen Hildebrand, and Mary Alice Monroe, I've read each of those each summer as well. And so, but yeah, this really made me want to pick up Dorothea Benton Frank's one of her first books, not one of her first books, but one of the first books I read. It might be her first book. Oh, no, I'm not sure. But Sullivan's Island. I can't remember the name of that series. Yeah, there might be like Sullivan Island series or something like that. Anyway, I borrowed that one from my library, so I'm going to be reading that one this month as well, because I loved her writing, and it's just really nice to, along with all these like short stories in here, they each start out with talking about like the author, like what their history is, and also what their history is with their friendship, and like the meeting, and like how long they knew her, and all the different like parties they would get together with her, and so yeah, it was just really nice to see like that writer friendship and just how they inspire each other. Yeah, it was just a really nice read. So if you know about any of these authors, or if you read anything by Dorothea Benton Frank, then yeah, I would highly recommend this book. And then I read a poetry collection. This is 100 poems by Seamus Heaney. Seamus, I think that's how you pronounce it. But I have been trying to read a book of poetry each month, and I think I skipped 1 month, but I am still working my way through it because I don't have much experience with poetry, and so with me reviewing this book, I don't know exactly what to say. But Heaney is like a well-known name in the poetry world. I have a well, I have it right here, Beowulf by Seamus Heaney, that I need to read, and I'm thinking about reading it in the fall. So his name was on my radar to read as one of my collections of poetry each month. And so this one, he died kind of like Dorothy and Frank, not in a way, but in the same kind of vein of he was thinking about collecting and making like something similar to this, but then he died. And so 5 years later, the family went through his poetry and found like the 100 best poems they thought, and so they created this collection. And so I think, I mean, at least from my perspective, if you're new to poetry or you're new to him, then this might be the way to go for you as well, because it really showed like the highlights of his work. And I should have taken notes on like some of my favorite like titles and so on, but I read it on ebook and I was just like getting through them. But yeah, I don't know. All I can say is I really liked him. I think I for sure would reread this and read more of his collections. But first, I'm gonna for sure get to Beowulf, and then read more of his. And then the last ebook I have is Western Women by Sandra Dallas. And this is, for her, I've read a bunch of her books as well. Like, I think maybe her most known work is like the Persian Pickle Club. But anyway, so she writes a lot of historical fiction set near or around Colorado, where she is living. And so this one, they're going from Chicago. This group of women are going from Chicago to California because they, for some reason or another, are looking for husbands. Some because they're trying to escape their current family situation. Some because they were never able to find a husband where they're at. And so yeah, there's a whole different background there. And so what's interesting is like, I've read several like frontier the Oregon Trail, Overland Trail, stories. But this was all on women. I think it was like 37 women, and there was very few men involved in this. They were just like, helping them out. And like by the end of the story, it was almost all women and very, very few men. Because for some reason or other, they had like left the picture. And so yeah, it was just really empowering to read about. And like, women even back then, could take the brunt of the work and like driving the oxens and stuff like that. So yeah, this is a really cool story and different than what I've read. And then on to my physical books, and these are all in the order in which I've read them. This is What Waits in the Water by Kieran Scott. And I read this one on my beach trip. And this is kind of like a scary story in a way. Because it kind of like, I don't know, it reminds me of like the Goosebumps or like the Are You Afraid of the Dark? Like that's why I picked it up at a free library. And this is following Hannah. And she is going on a weekend trip to visit her best friend at a cabin on the lake. And they get there, and the one thing that was annoying about this was like the whole entire trip, she and her stepsister are constantly battling because they're the same age, and so one is more into fashion and one is like a tomboy, so they're different. And but they're constantly competing on everything and just bickering all the time. I'm sorry for your fable. She's playing with a toy here. I can't get her camera because she's also on one side of her bed. Anyway, maybe she'll come around. But so yes, and so they're at this lake, and there's a bunch of like mysterious things that happen. Like Hannah is looking at the lake, and this like creature comes out of the water, and it's like mottled and huge, and like this is a lake, this isn't an ocean, so what could it be? And then at one point there's this like bloody pool of water that like starts spreading out. And so they also, and then like they're swimming in the water, and then someone's like grabbing their legs. And so yeah, like something's going on here, and it took a very dark turn towards the end, like once the explanation starts happening. And so yeah, I was kind of shocked by that, considering like I would think this is like a middle grade book. I don't think it's YA. I mean, it doesn't list it, but even though the people in the story, the characters are like 15 or 16 years old. I don't know, like the length and everything, it read like a middle grade book. But anyway, it for sure went there, which I wasn't expecting. So yeah, I would probably pick more of her up if I came across her. Let's see. And then I have for sure a YA book. This is Mr. Impossible by Maggie Stiefvater. This is book 2 in the Dreamer trilogy. And this is focusing on Ronan and his friend Jordan Hennessy. And I don't want to give too much away because if you haven't read like book 1, then yeah, because this takes place right after book 1. But I don't know. I can say like it's action packed, and it's following these dreamers who can pull objects from their mind, and they're on the run from people who want to stop them because these group of people think that the dreamers can end the world by dreaming up whatever, and so they are trying to wake Ronan and his group are trying to wake the girl Leylines to like make their magic more present and powerful and like long lasting is kind of what it is. And so but it's also I don't want to get too much into it, but yeah, so like there's different wills in place, and so yeah, it was really good. Again, I still like the Raven Cycle series more than this one, but yeah, I'll read the continuation of that series in a way for sure. I then have The Golden Age of the American Essay, 1945 to 1970, and this is edited by Philip Lopate, and this features all sorts of well-known names like, let's see, James Baldwin, Mary McCarthy, E.B. White, Vladimir Nabokov, Lionel Trilling, Elizabeth Hardwick, Flannery O'Connor, John Updike, Norman Mailer, Philip Ross, Susan Sontag. So yeah, it goes on and on. Now, for sure, I think like the later half of this collection, are more well named. At least to me, like I wasn't as experienced with the earlier people, but yeah, this was really good. I am trying to read more short stories, and as you can see from my house, I have a bunch of short story collections, but I don't have any essay collections, and so I saw this one had just come out, and so I was interested in it, and I liked it, But yeah, I think I like short stories better, I mean, or more than essays. But I am happy to have read this. There's a lot of like famous topics, like Martin Luther King. His what is the name of it? Letter from Birmingham Jail is in here, which was really nice to reread. I read this when I was in high school, and like Vladimir Nabokov's story was on a book entitled Lolita, so it's like an explanation on Lolita and like his perspective on why he wrote that. And let's see, there's anything else I can that's like really pointing out to me here. And again, I should have probably took notes as I was reading this. But anyway, yeah. So if you're interested in like the story of like World War, World War, to more like the modern day, then yeah, like this was really good. Like it shows like the shifting minds of America and the opinions and everything is going place like political and all sorts of things. And so yeah, this was really good. I then read Horseman Pass by. This is by Larry Flint Rattray, and this is part of a Texas trilogy called Talia. And I read book 1. I have a tab here for when I get to book 2. And Horseman Passed Me By. Like I didn't know this going in, but this is the first book that he ever wrote. So like the beginning, before I got into the book, was explaining how what inspired him to do it. Like he had just finished his bachelor's degree, and he was back home with his family living on the ranch, his ranch there, and so he was just like, I don't know, kind of killing time before going to graduate school. And so that's what inspired his story. And so it was just really cool to see the roots of where, because he's, even from the very beginning, his first story, there's cowboys. It has kind of like a serious, gritty mindset to it, it feels like. Like he doesn't hold back from like death or like I don't know, like sorrowful topics in a way. But at the same time, there's humor and it's just a well-told story, and it's not depressing. I mean, it has, what I mean? It's got it has depressing elements, but overall, it's still like that hopeful rancher Texas story, which is it was just really nice to read. And so let's see, I can't remember the character's name at all, but does it say it here somewhere? But this is probably a boy who he is. He is on this ranch, and he's always like looked up to the ranchers and his grandfather in particular, and but at the same time he's starting to resent like there's one rancher, and like the rancher wants the grandfather just like you're old, you're tired, I wanted to run this my way, and you just need to sit back and relax kind of thing. But at the same time the boy is I don't think he's that little boy. He's like a teenager, and so he's also going into Talia, and he's like has that small town aspect of going to a rodeo, and what are you gonna do on a Friday night? He just drives around with his friends and like gets up to no good, and so yeah, this is a really nice story, and I'm interested to see what Leaving Cheyenne, the second book in this trilogy, is gonna be like. Then going to another Texas story. This is The Sweetheart of Starlight by Lynette Sowell, and I read this for the Categorically Romance Readathon, and this is a very, very short book about a woman named Tamarind, who, and how can I forget that name? It's such an interesting name. She is running her own barbecue restaurant, and she's always wanted to do this, and her father gave her the money for it, and she is kind of struggling in a way. And then she has, over the summer, been going to these competitions all over, and so she meets a guy, and what is his Rick, and he is into Italian restaurants in New York, but he wants to take a turn into barbecuing. And even though he's living in New York City and has all these restaurants, he could easily open a barbecue restaurant there. But because he's touring that area and doing these competitions as well, he really likes the idea of the town Starlight, where Tamarind is at, and like just like that aspect of that small town vibe. And so he wants to open up a restaurant there. And at first, Tamarind is very worried because the business I am getting is now going to go to him. But it's totally different. His like very like highfalutin kind of food, like it's like elk and venison and that kind of thing, whereas hers is more like the typical barbecue, like ribs and chicken and pulled pork, that kind of thing. And so they form a friendship, and he actually helps her because he has a lot of experience, especially in the accounting, like the business side of things, whereas her experience is all from the heart. And so she needs help with the accounting and like just learning like how much food she'd be ordering and things like that. So my people's just gonna sit right here 1 second. So yes, and again, like it's her time to go out, and I wanted to film before getting her out here. 1 second, so I can get her to sit down. I really did take her out beforehand, but like just the timing didn't work out. Okay, let's see. I only have 2 more books to talk about. I then have Beverly Cleary's Ramona Forever. And I just wanted like a little like palate cleanser in between. Something really quick. I read this, I don't know, like an hour or less. And so I can get her on camera more. She's just walking around. Anyway, so this is following the previous book. And Ramona is now growing up, and she's no longer the baby. She and her sister are like trying to become more responsible. Like instead of like going to a babysitter's house, they want to stay at home. Like it's like Bea's is her older sister. Like she can watch her, and wants to prove themselves. And meanwhile, the family is going through a change. Her aunt, the mother's sister, is in a relationship, and so there's lots of things happening there. And yeah, it's just a really, really nice story. And I only have 1 more book over the Ramona Quimby series to read, and I'm sad, but there's a lot more by Beverly Cleary for me to read, which I'm excited about. And then the last book, the one I just finished today, is Her Hidden Legacy by Donica Favorite. This is a love-inspired, inspirational romance. And I read this again for the Categorically Romance Readathon. That's a long name. But this one is about I just read it today. How do I not remember her name? This is about Raylynn McCoy, and she is going to a ranch to as a reporter to like write up a story on it, but she doesn't tell them her company or the people she's interviewing that she has family ties to this ranch. So she's kind of keeping that hidden, but she is on the ranch touring it, and like even if like on the very first day, it kind of gets derailed in a way because it's a working ranch, and things are going awry with their family as well because there's a woman who is normally the secretary who's in jail, and so she's not doing her job, and so the people who should be helping tour the ranch with Raylynn now has to like go take care of the mother's kid, the one's in jail, like the secretary's kids, and all sorts of stuff. And so Raylynn kind of gets roped into helping them out, and so she has a really interesting reporting job. I'll say that. The one thing I did not like about the story is the very, very heavily religious aspect to this story. At one point, they're touring the ranch, and he talks about how it seems like something's bothering you. Have you talked to God about it? And she's like, yeah, but and basically, you should really think about that. And so like she like sets aside all of a sudden and like sits at a table and starts praying. And so I don't know. Like I know a lot of religious people, and that doesn't seem, I don't know, like realistic. Like you're not just walking and all of a sudden, okay, 1 second, I need to sit down at this table and really think about it. As you're going on this tour, it was I don't know, it was really bizarre and it threw me off. But even overall, like it felt like every other page had brought up something about religion. And I know these love-inspired have that Christian aspect to it. Most of them I don't mind it, but it was just very heavy-handed. But yeah, it was a nice story. I'm happy to read it. And I was like, when I was looking at this in more detail once I had done my book haul, because I found this at a free library. It comes out in July of 2021, so this is actually like an advanced copy. It doesn't say it anywhere on here, but yeah, maybe maybe it's someone who got it in advance and then put it in the free library. I don't know, but yeah, that was kind of cool. Cool to pick it up like that in the free library. So yeah, because you never know where you're gonna find at a free library. So sorry for like the scattered book talking away with Fable, but yeah, I'm gonna take her out right away because she is just itching to go out. But yeah, let me know if you've read any books, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks, BookTube.